exclusive inventory, fragmented tech, high minimums. Programmatic is built for the few, but advertisers need scale without the complexity. AdLib sits above it all, orchestrating activation, optimizing 24/7, 365, and giving you back 40% of the time spent juggling multiple DSPs and media partners. One login, every platform. No trade-offs. Go to getadlib.com, GETADLIB.com.
This podcast is brought to you by AudioHook, the leading independent audio DSP. AudioHook has direct publisher integrations into all major podcast and streaming radio platforms, providing 40% more inventory than what could be accessed in omnichannel DSPs. What's more, AudioBook has full transcripts on more than 90% of all podcast inventory, enabling advanced contextual targeting and brand suitability. AudioHook is so confident that in addition to CPM buys, they offer the industry's only pay-for-performance option where brands can scale audio and podcasting with peace of mind knowing they are only paying for outcomes. Visit audiohook.com to learn more. That's audiohook.com. Welcome to the Marketecture Podcast. This is Ari Paparo. Today we have a great episode. Omar coming. Omar Tawakol, the CEO of Rembrand, formerly the CEO of Blue Kai, and well-known figure in the ad tech circles, will be joining us as our guest. Eric will be joining as well. It's an exciting conversation about product placement and how AI can help with product placement, which is a subject that's... This podcast is brought to you by Playwire. What if the real competitive advantage isn't choosing between human judgment and AI, but knowing when to use each? Playwire is launching a self-service platform with rules-based control and machine learning optimization. No more one-size-fits-all monetization. At Marketecture Live, we'll reveal performance data, including how one publisher saw 168% higher CPMs by choosing where to use human oversight versus automation. See the platform at playwire.com. That's playwire.com. So probably a lot of people haven't thought about so much. And also, they recently did some acquisitions, which is unusual in an early stage company. We also are celebrating Advertising Week, or talking about it at least. So we're recording this on Thursday of Advertising Week. A lot of stuff going on, a lot of parties, a lot of events. So we get the perspective on that. Thank you to those of you who came to the Monday Ad Tech God Party at the Virgin Hotel. It was lit. It was fun. I know some folks didn't get in. It might be a little sore. Sorry. There's only limited capacity. And the next thing up on the agenda for Marketecture, of course, is our live event, Marketecture Live, coming up on October 27th. That is selling out pretty quickly. I would suggest if you are planning on going, you should definitely buy a ticket. I know I've said that before, but we're not. One day the tickets are just going to be gone, and then you're going to be texting me, asking me to get in, and I will not be able to help you. It's also worth noting that for qualified brands and agencies, it is a complimentary ticket. So if you're listening to this and you're in those categories, you should probably register, and we will approve qualified members of those professions. With that said, let's just jump right in with Omar Tawakol, the CEO of Rembrand. All right, welcome, Omar, to the Marketecture Podcast. Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So we just saw you at Advertising Week. Eric and I saw your talk. So it's new and fresh. But we were supposed to, for the people who saw you, we're going to give you a hard time about your really bad headshot. So do you have a professional headshot somewhere hidden out there?
I probably do. I think that was a Facebook headshot from like 15 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of headshot fraud going on where people look like young and thin in their headshot, and then you see them and you're like, wow, that was a long time ago. But not for you. It just was a bad, low quality photo. You look the same. So, you're aging well, I guess, is the lesson here.
Apparently so. Would have been a great.
What a no-brainer generative AI tool. Yeah, like every conference should do this for their speakers. Like, let's build this.
We should age them. We should, give us the year your age, and the AI will age you appropriately. So Omar, you've been in the news a lot. So we want to talk about your company, Rembrand, which disclosure, Eric, you're an investor in this, right?
Yes, I am.
All right, that's just always our disclaimer. Unusually, I'm not involved in this one, so that's a little bit of a twist. And it's an interesting space, and it's done some acquisitions lately, which we want to hear about. Private to private acquisitions are always kind of an interesting subject. So why don't you just start with giving us the elevator pitch? We'd love to hear what the story is.
Yeah, so the background of the story is, the three of us on this call grew up with programmatic in our careers, going from 0 to like 250 billion. And all the while, this industry has become much better at showing the right ad to the right person at the right place with the right data, with the right price. And during the last 20 years, consumers have proven that they just want to run away from ads. You walk into a room at advertising week yesterday, and I asked the people, how many people here are paying for subscriptions to Netflix and Amazon Prime and stuff like that? And virtually the whole room raised their hand. And that's advertising week. So here are the professionals who spend their day allocating budgets to literally go home and pay to say, I don't want to see that stuff. And, we saw this and we noticed it. And so we basically said, why bet against consumers? That doesn't seem like a good idea in the long run. And in particular, we noticed this 10-year trend that 10 years ago, 80% of time on video was spent in high ad load environments where you're talking about 17 minutes per hour of having to sit through ads or walk up and get a drink or not pay attention, but you are subjected to that. And then 10 years later, it's actually flipped. 80% of the time is in low to no ad load. So you're talking about on average, it's now like 5 to 7 minutes as opposed to 17. So the consumer's already spoken. And the people who benefit from this are streamers who figured out they can make a lot of money outside of advertising. And so with those facts behind us, we built a company to say, maybe there's another way. Maybe we can embed a brand opportunity in a video in a way that doesn't interrupt the consumer, but also allows you to get a branding moment for the advertiser. So that's kind of the... Go ahead.
It makes total sense. I mean, we've been hearing about that for years. You watch The Sopranos and suspiciously they're drinking a lot of Tropicana orange juice in all the scenes. It's like, it's like how, I don't know, I'm not going to put a joke in there because I'll get in trouble. But, so what's different? What's changed in the AI world?
Yeah, lots changed. There's one last thing about that occurred to me more recently, even than we started it, is that I'm happy to pay for subscriptions. And a lot of the execs I know are happy. But if you want to produce a solution for all of humanity, where there are a bunch of people who just don't want to afford to pay for it, there's got to be a very good way. And so in order to do that, we needed to find an at-scale way to place brands and content that isn't high friction. So now I'm going to get to your question. What we're doing is not new. There has been physical product placement for a long time, physical product placement from the very, very beginning. And except you have to negotiate 2 years in advance of a show to get into it. And with influencer stuff, it was 6 to 7 weeks. So that existed. Then for the last 10 to 15 years, there was a crop of companies who came after the virtual product placement area. But there was 2 or 3 things that they did that made it a very manual, high friction proposition. The first thing they did is they used VFX to actually place the product in, which meant you literally had to manipulate every frame. And you depending upon the content, could be like, 32 frames a second or less. So you've got a lot to manipulate. Sometimes it could take $30,000 to $40,000 in 3 weeks for people to do things like this for high-end content. So high friction to place it. But there was also a second type of friction that was maybe even more insidious. And that is matching friction. So an advertiser, comes and says, wow, this virtual product placement's great. I want to place my can of, some drink, I won't say which brand, on Tuesday taco scenes. Like, okay, great. That really cuts the inventory down to a way that makes the publisher say, yeah, thanks a lot. I'm not sure this is an interesting conversation. So that's one matching problem. The other matching problem that's also troubling was that you have actors and directors who have opinions about, well, would my actor really drink, bubbly or Pepsi, or like what really goes in the scene? And so when you combine that kind of friction with the VFX friction, think about how much back and forth would happen for a buy. You cannot do that at scale and programmatically. So those are the more interesting problems we set out to solve to Rembrand, which is one, use AI to replace VFX. That's the clearest one, and you couldn't have done that before. Literally the last couple of years were the first. And even this year, there were some advancements that I could talk about later that really did a massive unlock for us. So that's the first problem. But I think the more interesting business solves are really along moving the matching friction. And that's where I think a lot of startups have died. They figured that they could pay the costs of VFX by having VFX people in lower cost countries, but they didn't think through the higher friction in the selling process around matching, and they didn't solve that. And so those are the problems we can talk about.
So this is like a three-sided market, right? You have the rights owners, the distribution partners, and the advertisers. Is that a good way to think about it?
We attacked it first as two-sided. How did we do that? And this was a very interesting, inventive step. Everybody else had gone to movie producers. We started at first with influencers, because influencers were single decision makers that would come into our platform, pull a virtual Pepsi off the shelf. And then once they embed it in their video, they would upload it into YouTube or TikTok. And at that point, the platforms aren't involved.
Okay, so this is pre-production, or during production. You're influencer. You're recording your video, and in that workflow, you log into Rembrand, grab a Pepsi offer effectively, and upload your video, and boom, the Pepsi's in the frame.
Totally. And then we just OAuth into the platforms to get impressions and charge the advertisers. That's the first couple of years. This year we added TV, though.
I'm going to ask the Juicero question. Why can't they just hold up a Pepsi? Why do you need AI for this?
Yeah. Great point. Because what's happening is, and totally get that. You separate out well, first of all, the easy answer for that, let me just give you the easy answers. Fast forward, we now have TV content, and we can do it all programmatically, and we can have Eric have a Pepsi and you have a Coke, and all post-production. So that's the long-term answer for sure. But the short-term answer for us is these creators would go ahead and create their content completely without even thinking about what product's going to be put in. And it wasn't even the influencer. It was the influencer's ops person. 2 hours before uploading, everything's already done, came in and said, okay, which offer do I want? And they would put it in. And the interesting thing is they would be able to put it in sometimes for like 15 minutes, right? So you're not going to go back in time and say, so hold up the camera for 15 minutes, right? You've got much more separation of content creation. But the real answer is you can now apply this to a catalog and programmatically put two different products for two different viewers.
Yeah, right. But it's not real time, right? Currently it's a pre-production, it's a post-production process.
That's what it was for the first 2 years. We now have wired in actual programmatic that you can in real time shift one thing to the others. Now, I want to be clear about what I mean by in real time. It may be some number of minutes before a particular part of show that shows that you look and say, oh, these two advertisers won the bid. You bake in two variants so that a minute later, the auction can decide which one to show.
Right. I can imagine, maybe this is beyond the tech right now, but you could have sort of a Twitch streamer who takes their camera and somehow, plugs it into your system. So it's adding in the product placement before it ever gets streamed to Twitch. Correct.
Yeah. We haven't been doing the streaming part.
Yeah.
But we've been doing the stream. Let me say that wrong. We do streaming, of course. We haven't been doing the live streaming part yet.
And how do the advertisers think about this? Is it amount of time on the screen that determines the currency, or is it it can't be raw impressions, right?
Yeah, great. It is impressions. You need to have a minimum time on screen and a minimum percentage of screen for it to make sense. And it depends upon the context, but you're talking about, it'd be great to have a screen with, 20% of it captured by, a billboard, or a product. Sometimes the product is too small for 20%, but, basically you want a minimum percent of pixels, and you want to be, on screen for 5 to seconds minimum. Those are the kinds of things that you get. Now in our influencer product, we would sometimes be on screen for tens of minutes, but in professional TV shows where the camera's constantly moving, going from scene to scene, it's a different proposition. But I think you're getting into some kind of the more interesting part of like, why would an advertiser do this? Like, what is the real value prop to them?
Yeah. What is it?
Yeah. So this is the area I think virtual product placement has struggled in also the most, is that it's a wide canvas. You can do anything. And sometimes people just get attracted to the sex appeal of, oh, wow, that's cool. Let me just open the show. But what we have found is that the job to be done that's really interesting for advertisers, specifically for virtual product placement, is when they have new news. So, Sprite now with Cherry, Lincoln now has an electric model, a particular, promotion. New news is like a good piece, 30 to 40% of a CPG's, budget may have that style to it in their advertising. And this is where what we've discovered is the opportunity to put a very large billboard that naturally sits in an outdoor city scene where you can say that, except it won't get skipped. There's nothing else to look at on the scene that has a message to it. So the message recall is through the roof. And we found that this performs even better than the 3D product placement that happens to be sitting, the can on the table, which is the more sexy thing the brand wants. But the actual billboard placement in an outdoor scene has very strong attention. You don't have an actor sitting in the scene taking away the attention. It's a beautiful scape, and all you see is Sprite now with Cherry. So that one satisfies the delivery of a message that isn't skipped, that's in a natural environment that looks like it belongs there.
I feel like I could ask you like a million questions about this, about brand safety and all that stuff. I'm going to kind of leave that to the reader as an exercise. I'm particularly interested in the pricing issue though, because you go from like basically here's $500,000. You're going to use my car in your movie 2 years from now, which how do you know that's the right price? To like a CPM model, like how that calculation breaks my spreadsheet. Like, how do you convince the buyer of the correct price?
Yeah. So first of all, we want this to all be programmatic, right? Different shows should have different price, different audiences, and all of that. So we want to get out of that business and let the market set the price. That's the first thing. But how do you know that it's working? So, for example, there are brands that are doing a very significant part, 15% of the budget in some countries of their linear TV budget, doing exactly this strategy, because what they've done is they've connected to Kantar, not at the campaign level, but at the brand tracker level, to look and see how much is this technique moving the needle for them. And so I think the importance for this to scale is integration into the tools the brand advertisers using so that they can do their attribution, they can do their modeling and really understand how much they're spending on this. And that's why we've started to believe that even though you can do anything with virtual product placement, narrowing the field down to something like new news with a specific job to be done, with a specific format, it's a billboard, makes the job a lot easier on the adoption side so that you can precisely answer your questions. How much should I spend on this?
Is this coming from the product placement budgets or from the influencer budgets?
We are very focused on media budgets. And we've, as you know, with a couple acquisitions we've done, most of the virtual product placement we're doing now is in TV. Our work in the influencer is shifting to the kind of stuff we do on top of the Spaceback platform. And so,
yeah, let's talk about that. So Spaceback, a longtime member of our sort of extended ad tech community, you acquired them. What was the thinking on the acquisition, and what's next for it?
Yeah, this was a deal we were really excited about because about mid last year, we launched a new product called virtual product ads. And what virtual product ads did is it solved a brand safety problem that we had with influencers, where an influencer would buy a product for us for the first 2 years, but they didn't get to see the video they were in, right? Because the influencer hadn't launched it yet. And 2 hours before they launch it, they come to us and we're going to sit around waiting for a brand to approve it or not. So they had to approve the influencer, but they couldn't approve the video. And some brands were really scared. You could see it. Like I remember talking with like the head of investment at one of the agencies, and they were like visibly scared. They're like, oh God, but what if they do something stupid? So rather than try to solve that with technology, what we did is we moved to a model of doing back catalog only, meaning the video had already been posted. You get to approve it and choose it, and then we'll virtually place in it. And we launched this product and we integrated the trade desk. And the very moment that we launched it, we saw that the announcement, there was a company called Spaceback. They were with us. And so we started talking to these guys and we're like, wow, they're doing exactly what we do, except they're not doing the virtual product placement part. They're basically decorating the video, putting the product next to the video in a frame. Like you have a CTV frame and you have the vertical that shows, Instagram with someone talking, doing something. And then to the right of it, they'd put a product. We're like, oh, wow, these guys have 3,000 advertisers and are profitable, doing exactly what we just launched. Wow, what if we add AI to that? And not only would we add virtual placement in it, what if we started using AI to generate new scenes and stuff like that? The vision aligned really well with Casey and team. They had a good go-to-market motion that they tested over years, and they solved one problem that we forgot to solve.
Which was what?
And that is, they only used videos that had already been approved. So then when you went to a media budget, that person didn't have to have an extra friction step of getting approvals. They could just run a campaign. We had the extra step because it was an influencer from our network, and we noticed that was slowing down how long it took to launch a campaign. So we're like, wow. And they solved the actual problem that we have. Man, this is peanut butter and jelly.
And that was your second acquisition of the summer, right? So which sort of explains why you were deferring on coming on this podcast in the months of August and September. Exactly. You were a little busy. What was the other acquisition?
Yeah. So that one was a little bit different. That was, no equity involved. And so what that one was a company called Myriad, who had been in this domain from 11 years and was very, very different from us. First of all, the reason we bought them is they had a huge number of very good publisher deals with inventory sitting in their system from TV shows ready to have VPP done. And we had been exclusively...
VPP, virtual product placement.
Virtual product placement. Thank you.
You're inventing new acronyms here.
Sorry.
Right on the show.
Yeah.
It's not new to us. Sorry.
So they've been doing virtual product placement, but they're literally the opposite of us in the sense that how did they start as a company? They won an Oscar for doing the wings now I'm forgetting the show where she's a ballerina, Black Swan. Was that right? And they did some really good VFX there. And it was beautiful artwork. And they said, wow, why don't we turn this into business? Except instead of, doing art in a movie, why don't we do it with products? And our mission in life has always been to not do manual artwork, and take this to the point where it's programmatic, done all with AI. But they had 11, 12 years to build up publisher deals and relationships. And so they accelerated our entrance. We always wanted to enter into the professional area once we knew the AI was ready, and it just became ready this year. I'll tell you why in a minute.
So to be clear, they're doing kind of what you would call the old fashioned VFX style virtual product placement.
Correct. And just to be fair to them, they weren't all old fashioned. They did use AI to determine this is a good movie. This is brand safe. It has a kitchen scene, and the kitchen scene lasts 20 seconds. And please approve this kitchen scene. So, they had technology too. They just didn't have the technology that did the AI that was needed to finish the job and make it programmatic. So, but they had all the publisher deals. And there was an opportunity for us to buy that asset and just massively accelerate our time to market, on having inventory and having publisher relationships outside of influencers. So that's why we did that one. And, I guess I have a bias because when we were acquired at BlueKai by Oracle, one of the tools that Larry Ellison made available, and it was literally the first day I met him, the day of the deal close, he looked at me and he said, "Hey, we acquired BlueKai. I want you to build this group called the Oracle Data Cloud. Tell me who you're going to acquire." And I remember, I looked at him and I said, "You mean to tell you now?" And the corp dev guy grabbed my hand and squeezed it to tell me to shut up. And I said, "How about I come back next week?" That gave me a chance to go to the corp dev team and say, "Here's my map for the world. Do you guys agree?" And then we went back to Larry and great things happened.
Omar, one of the things that I learned from you early on in Rembrand's life was the size of I guess you would call it the product placement market as a whole. I said 50 billion yesterday, like on a panel. I think it's more like 30 something.
Yeah, there's also, it's in the tens of billions.
It's an enormous market.
It's an enormous market and it's global, but we give you a sense of like Casino Royale. And in Casino Royale, you have the Aston Martin. That deal took a long time. And it's a lot of money Aston Martin put in that. But if you think about the humans that did the deal, because I've actually met them, great people, they think very differently than we think. We want a media deal that can be done. They want a deal that takes time, where they can have dinners with the folks, maybe show up at the opening of the movie, take a selfie with the actor. Like, these guys think in a very different way than we think. And so we do not target them as the kind of folk. We are trying to build a media business. We want this to be fast and efficient.
In defense of that mode, that Aston Martin mode, like being able to have your executives, take photos with the stars has enormous positive effects. It's not just vanity. It's channel sales. It's PR. It's part of a campaign, right?
Yeah, and they should continue to do that. We have no issue with what they're doing. If you think about the model that we're trying to do is the separation of supply and demand so that it'll be programmatic. And that's why we choose stuff like transition scenes. There's no actors in the scene that can be approved once. And as long as it's a brand that you have on our approved list, it could be any of 1,000 brands that show up in a billboard. You're really not going to care.
So I want to talk about this private to private transactions. You bought two companies as a venture funded, non-PE funded company. It's pretty unusual. I've tried to do these deals in my personal career, and it's often really hard because the two sides have you're swapping stock, and both sides have different opinions about what their stock is worth. Can you give us some like gritty details, just without numbers, just like what's it like negotiating this? How do you get to the table, et cetera?
It is hard. It is definitely hard. And you're doing the exact issue is how do you determine relative valuation? So before you get there, you really need to be sure that you have some sort of vision alignment and that you're doing something that's going to be, sensible to you. So at BlueKai, we did one of these acquisitions because we needed to build out the DMP fast. And there was this team that was ex-Amazon that had a advertising facing analytic data platform that massively accelerated how fast we became a DMP. And those guys were just awesome. They stayed with the company. They built up so much with me. And so that one worked really well. Then when we did Voicea, we didn't have a mobile app. We were all kind of a meeting agent that came, into the meeting via the web. And this little 3-person startup had all these users that were growing fast. They had no underlying AI, and we had the AI, but they had really good mobile tech. We acquired them. And some of those people are still with me here, multiple companies later, doing stuff. So that is the more important part than the relative value part. But the relative value part is real. And so anytime you have a signal from investors who have recently invested, that just makes it unemotional. You just go in and say, look, that's what we were priced. And this is what you were priced. So yeah, we can make some adjustments, but if either side isn't going to accept that, then maybe you should go out and do a little investment to let the outside world determine this if you can.
Yeah. So Eric, from your perspective, you're an angel investor, no, seed investor in the company, and the CEO comes to you and says, we're going to have a significant dilution event, I guess would be the best way to put it, in order to grow. You know, how do you look at that?
Yeah, I mean, it's said differently what Omar said, which is you need to understand how these businesses fit better together, how there's either immediate or credible value creation over a defined time period, and then ultimately you need to bet on the acquirer doing good acquisitions, right? Because as we know across our careers, most acquisitions don't work out. So you need to feel really good about, the acquiring company having the skills and the roadmap to make these things work. And as Omar said before, he's done this multiple times. So we had real confidence, and we were an investor in Spaceback, by the way. So
of course you were.
Yeah, being a believer. I know this is now an N equals one, apparent example, but we have strong belief in Rembrand and where they're going. We knew that Spaceback was a great company. We love the idea of Spaceback coming to Rembrand and Rembrand getting additional capabilities. So this one, it's a little bit of inside baseball, perfect down the fairway. I don't know what you use the analogy for, but yeah, it's about having just like the credibility to understand where this might fit.
The one thing I'd add to that, Ari, about making this stuff work is I saw so many acquisitions of Cisco and Oracle, and there's one thing that they did sometimes that I always saw predicts failure, and something they didn't do sometimes that always predicted success. And that is come in as a conquering nation, right? Acquire the company, assume you know better, divide them up and say, you need to do marketing our way, you need to do product our way, rebuild it on our stack, resell the way we sell, let my sales team sell it. You don't even need to have a company meeting anymore because these guys went one way, these guys went the other. Why the hell do the acquisition?
Right.
If you're such a conquering hero, and so, and people are full of egos. So being able to find a way to allow people to keep the magic that they have, yet still explore synergy is the hardest part.
Yeah. I heard this funny story from a former Blue Kai person that the day the deal closed, the first thing that happened was that the Oracle lawyers show up at the office and make it very clear that dogs aren't welcome. There's a no dog policy in the office. You want to comment on Oracle's hatred of dogs?
I don't know. I don't remember that, but I'll tell you one thing I can say about the Oracle experience, which proves my point. They divided Blue Kai into two parts. One part went into the Oracle Marketing Cloud, and one part went into the Oracle Data Cloud. They basically said, Omar, you go around the marketing, the Data Cloud part. And to be honest, I loved the DMP part even more because it was faster growing. And is what drove us to profitability. But as a point of fact, this was a social experiment. The part that went into the Data Cloud was untouched. We could do exactly what we used to do. And the part that went into the Marketing Cloud was divided up into 7 pieces. So the higher growing part after acquisition slowed down, and the slower growth area accelerated.
Interesting.
It's an amazing social experiment.
It's like a split twins experiment.
Yes.
So, all right, I think that's a great stopping point. So we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back with a lot of Advertising Week, Trade Desk, various retail media networks, the usual, around the bases news. We'll be right back.
All right, and we are back. It is Advertising Week, so that means there are so many partnership announcements and product announcements and deals and rumors. We'll try to get to as many as possible. And we'll try to actually talk about Advertising Week a little bit because we were all there. But before we do, Omar, you had one more thing to add.
Yeah, I was just going to add one last thing about Spaceback is we when we did the deal, we knew we were going to merge these companies based on what we saw about the product and sat with the leadership team. But last week we actually did a company to company thing where we were with the entire company for a few days out in Charleston, and they're better than the diligence showed. This is, and it reminds me of the old days of Blue Kai. Our go-to-market team was just such an awesome team, and they stuck together well. That's what I see in that Spaceback team. The people element of it is really cool. Anyway,
I met Casey back when he first started, and he said, imagine if instead of banner ads, it was a Valentine's from your girlfriend. And I was like, that's a dumb idea. But nice guy. I'm sure it'll work out. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. He worked out, but it worked out.
Yeah, it worked out.
Okay. All right. Let's talk advertising week. Give the listeners who may or may not have been there in New York a vibe check. Why don't we start with you, Ari?
Yeah, it's advertising week is big and messy and takes over the whole city, and I love it. I actually have come around. I used to be the kind of person, regular listeners may know I like to complain a little bit. I'm a kvetcher. I'm a New Yorker. But I've come around. I'm like, okay, fine. I don't love the venue. The Emerald people know the venue sucks. They're not dumb. They're smart. It's just, it is what it is. But then you go out and you see 7 people you barely know on the streets on 6th Avenue, and they go to a party. Then, I did a hackathon. I was a judge of a hackathon. All kinds of interesting stuff going on. And, it's fun. It's exciting.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked. The kvetcher in chief is coming around. That's great. What about you, Omar?
Well, this was my favorite advertising week for a very silly reason. I happened to have breakfast with the CEO of Emerald, who's an old buddy of mine, and what an amazing individual this guy is, and so after breakfast, he walked me into the show, and so I got to get a slightly different experience than the usual times. I was like, wow, this was cool. So, but the content was great. And I think this is one of their biggest, in terms of number of attendees. So, good stuff. And I agree with you about, venue, but I'll keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, I talked to Hervé about it as well. He's a super nice guy, really interesting. He treated me and some other CEOs to a little dinner. Thanks to the Emerald team for that. But yeah, they're aware that the venue is not ideal and they're looking at options.
For those who are not in New York or haven't attended, the venue is in, I think, a defunct department store.
Manhattan Mall.
In the middle of the Manhattan Mall, in the middle of Herald Square. So it's a defunct mall. So picture being in a mall, having multi-levels, escalators, all storefronts on all sides, just kind of gutted out and filled with advertising and advertising technology, content and vendors and chaos. It's pretty unique.
The mall is a big improvement because it used to be in a movie theater on the Upper West Side, the Sixplex on Lincoln Center. That was terrible. So the mall is an improvement. Also, side note, many New Yorkers know this, the mall was built using the money that Imelda Marcos and her husband stole from the CIA back in the 80s. So there's a Ronald Reagan connection to all of this.
Final question on the advertising week front before we get into some of the news of the week. Anything interesting in terms of conversations you had, things on people's minds, like general vibe check around the industry?
I think that the trade desk drama continues to be a conversation that the people who I know like to talk about, buy side, sell side, blah, blah, blah. It's a little tiresome, but that's what people want to talk about. And for me, it's all antitrust all the time. It's, I've become a very boring guest to have at your party because that's all I want to talk about.
That's all anybody wants you to talk about since you're the guy. Yeah,
basically.
What about you, Omar?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I just joined the board of the trade desk, so I do pay attention to that. And while I won't talk about the trade desk, I will comment that Jeff's the same guy that I really liked back in the day when he was so deep on this idea of an open, transparent, fair internet, and nothing's changed. He really, really cares about that. So it's refreshing to see somebody who's had such a long held vision on where they want to go. But other than that, I won't talk about their actual strategy.
Omar, you're going to get Jeff on this podcast because he's been flirting with us for a really long time, and he remains not on this podcast.
I'll certainly ask.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Listeners, you can see how hard we've been working to try to get Jeff Green on for you. We're actually putting in the work. Um, I would say just one addition on the conversations. It's a big difference from last year. I think last year one of the things that we were commenting on was that there's like not enough conversation about AI. This year it's flipped. It's all AI, and I think a lot more examples of how things are coming to market, and a lot of questions around the next 12 months and what really is going to take off, how these shifts around, traffic dropping from search and coming from LLMs, all that stuff seems to be, quite imminent. And a lot of conversations around, who might be the agentic winners. So I was pleased to see that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Lots of discussion about what it means, what the disruption around agentic is going to be for marketing. And the other area that I saw, and I may be biased, is a lot of talk about the creative unit and in content. So everything we do is about placing it in content. But if you think about what's going on in LLMs, it's another variant of in content, which is what would it mean for you to have a sponsored sentence? And what can you do even if you're not sponsoring, just to make sure you're influencing the sentence? So there's a lot of attention to that.
I also saw a presentation from, I forget her name, but the person who's the head of publisher relations at Perplexity. And it was very different conversation from maybe a year ago. They were not talking about ads. They were talking about, their browser and revenue sharing on paid subscriptions from the browser and stuff like that. And she said, like, you may still see sponsored ads in the search results, but don't expect to see them for very long, more or less. Maybe I'm mischaracterizing, but it was a pretty big change in Perplexity's attitude towards ads.
Yeah.
I was there. Yeah, I was there. I got the same takeaway. And then, finally, just, the what are ads in completely virtual environments? I finally got access to the Sora app, and I've been playing around with it, and it's TikTok, but it's all AI. And you can imagine, what this becomes from a media platform, and what ads might look like. It's like a whole birth of new categories, while we're still kind of rebuilding the other categories.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it definitely is closer to the future than Facebook's Vibes, which is just AI with no human touch or very little human touch. I don't know if it's the right thing. I mean, TikTok plus AI sounds like the right combo. AI plus TikTok seems maybe the wrong way. I don't know. We'll see.
The way they're doing it is so cool.
Omar, this must be magic for you. Like, you're like just champing at the bit. Give me an API and I'll put those ads in there.
Yeah, totally. Of course. That's more content. And we're actually partnering with a company that, will take all this video of a real world, actress, influencer, and then kind of not quite like it's similar to like Sora in approach, but then they create branded content for brands in different parts of the world based on this. So many people are attacking this from different angles.
Yeah, final thing on Sora, I like the way they're giving the opportunity to put you in videos with your friends or with creators that have opted in to allow you to insert them into your videos. So like I've been creating videos of me fighting Jake Paul for the past week. It's so hilarious.
Our kids are not going to know the difference between reality and it's amazing.
Yeah, for
the
sure.
effects of this are going to be really big. I mean, if you remember, starting in like 2008, because of the iPhone, there was a generation that grew up on that. And as those people grew up and became, teens, the amount of like anxiety and depression skyrocketed worldwide, right? And that's because people started, instead of having real world interactions, watching all these curated interactions and comparing their real life to the curated ones. They're like, wow, why does my life suck? So think about what's going to happen now to, the kids who grew up on this like world. There's going to be some interesting ramifications.
Agreed. All right, let's get into the news. Amazon DSP named transition partner for Microsoft Invest. I don't know if this was a surprise so much as, the next announcement out of Amazon over the course of, a month or so. I think also what was interesting is Microsoft Monetize, the SSP, was named a preferred SSP in Amazon supply program. So while they're sunsetting the buy side, they're, not exiting advertising or media completely, because they're, kind of continuing to monetize on the supply side. What was your take on this one, Ari?
I think it sounds like a quid pro quo.
Yeah.
A preferred transition partner, that doesn't really mean very much, right? It's maybe some download, upload capabilities, get on a joint phone call. Customers can transition wherever they want, right?
True. But if, they make it easy, they could, retain some good business.
Yeah. I mean, every dollar matters, right? And so good for Amazon. They have the hustle. They're making deals. It seems like another piece of mini bad news for the trade desk in their ongoing competition with Amazon that Jeff Green denies is happening. So good for Amazon.
Let's talk about TTD. So last week was the, two posts about the industry and the wrapper Open Ads. So Open Ads creates a separate branched off auction based on pre-bids codes that still uses the transaction IDs. Is there anything more to cover on that one? I mean, people are talking about this all week. Just want to touch base on it.
Yeah, I talked to some people about this, and it doesn't seem like it's a big market mover in any way. I think publishers are cautious. They're saying, well, why should I have another wrapper? Or why should I switch wrappers? Or why should I have another wrapper? Because currently most publishers have two wrappers. They have pre-bid plus Amazon's TAM. So do you want a third one? If you do have a third one, why? What's the benefit? Am I going to be forced to use Open Ads in order to benefit from Open Path, the inventory? A lot of open questions, people waiting and seeing to what the reality is.
Yeah, makes sense. One other announcement on the TTD front that I thought was actually really cool. So they're offering programmatic sponsored ads on the GoPuff app via Cody, who is a specialized ad server for commerce media and retail media. So, one of the rubs against sponsored ads are that they're hard to buy programmatically. They're not yet scaled. You can't use RTB. This seems to be one of the first forays into doing that. So I was impressed with this one.
No comment. I don't have any opinion about this. I don't know what GoPuff is. I don't know what Cody is. So I'm very the wrong person to ask.
Oh, GoPuff is, I think, a delivery app. And Cody is, like I said, it's sort of like, they're a competitor to Kevel. So it's, ad server and monetization for RMNs.
I'm just an old man trying to keep up with these youngins and their ad tech companies.
This is
Eric,
one of the two. Go ahead, Omar.
I appreciate
Tell Ari about
perspective. Yeah. I'm unfortunately less familiar with all the details there, but appreciate you highlighting a good piece of news. So I like it.
Guys, there's two fast-growing categories. It's all things video and CTV, and there's retail commerce media. This is a good step in the direction of commerce media.
Congratulations.
100%.
Thank you. I feel like I'm getting congratulated. Let's move on. Index launched Data Marketplace a week after TTD had some significant changes in their marketplace for data. This one for sell-side curation. So interesting on this front, Index is not collecting any deal curation fees for use of the Data Marketplace. So it feels like this is a win-win for publishers.
Yeah, Index from the start has been very much highlighting their deals fee structure as an advantage in their curation marketplace. I cannot comment on how real it is, how the other people price, but Andrew Casali definitely feels like their fee transparency and lack of fees in various paths is a competitive advantage where they'll make money on selling more inventory. They don't want to make money on the data. So that's an interesting positioning, and I don't know what the direct competitors are doing in the fee area.
Yeah. And the other announcement, Index is Firefox's first programmatic partner.
Yeah, I like this one too. So Firefox had a effort to bring in ads with maybe 5 or 6 years ago. They didn't really go anywhere. They hired what's his name? Darren Herman. Thank you to run that. And it came under the same sort of problems of like, we don't like ads, but we want ads. They should be good ads, not bad ads. And it's sort of, I think it didn't really go anywhere. So nice to see them opening up. This is, more of this kind of hedged garden approach, limited availability, probably a lot of curation, old fashioned curation around the quality of the ads. It seems like it makes sense.
Yeah. Firefox it's not clear exactly what market share they have. It's 2 to 7% on desktop, depending on who you ask, and about 0.5 to 1% on mobile devices. So while those are small numbers, it's still probably a decent total audience size.
Good inventory. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, back to RMNs. 3 RMNs, or maybe 2.5 RMNs launched this week. So the first, I thought this one was interesting. PayPal launched an SMB ad network. So it is all of the SMBs that have a digital presence that work with PayPal. They can start getting ads at the point of checkout, which is actually a great place to put ads, non-intrusive, kind of all incremental. And then channel those profits into spending money on PayPal ads or to their bottom line or something like that. Question around, is this inventory as good as, a sponsored listing that's, super, super endemic? But I think it's a good effort to try to, build up some supply in a unique place. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Mark is on the move. Will be at Marketecture Live. I'll be asking him about this program on the stage. But yeah, PayPal has this great advantage, which is huge reach. Enormous number of retailers use them. But the disadvantage is fragmented reach. It's a lot of smaller ones. So this is kind of a just give me the money program. You put it into your app and boom, you see some ads and you make some money. Competitive with Rokt, I guess, ROKT. Seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah, and it also depends on the granularity of the targeting option on the checkout page, because it's very granular and you can aggregate enough. That could be pretty helpful.
Yeah. From the release, it said that they're giving the SMBs control over categories. So if you are a pizza place, you won't have other pizza places showing ads on your property, which I think is a good thing. But the real key to your point, Omar, is how much is PayPal using the transactional data to inform these ads, and you can do some presumably really, really interesting things with understanding payments. So it's one to watch. 2 others. Amex launched Amex Ads.
Good name. Good name.
It is a good name. I would not get confused about Amex Ads, who owns it. And I think it's starting with Amex Travel. This is maybe the inverse or opposite of PayPal, where this is Amex users, which apparently it's 30 million US. And, obviously with the different cards, they probably can target based on certain demographics and household income. Amex Travel obviously can be, tailored to high end. So this is a cool one, I thought.
Yeah, I mean, the whole financial sector is diving right in, right?
Yeah, for sure. On the heels of Chase and others. And you got Duolingo. So Duolingo launched ads. This one, like Amex, it was overtly saying this is direct sold. We don't want programmatic. We're not doing programmatic. We're being highly conscious of creative and format and so on and so forth. So it's an interesting, maybe mini trend of, dipping your toes into ads, but, being pretty highbrow about it. We don't want any of that programmatic stuff.
They missed the opportunity here. The opportunity is to make people translate brand messages, say in Espanol, Tropicana is delicioso. That's the opportunity here.
What a no-brainer. I mean, maybe they are. If not, Paul, all right, he's got ideas.
Because everybody wants to hear my terrible French accent.
Amazing. All right, what else we got? AppLovin gets investigated by the SEC over data collection practices. So the stock dropped something like 20% after being up massively, 80% this year and 700% last year. The SEC noted that they are responding to whistleblower and short seller complaints, and the company is not being accused of anything. But such a stock that is, such a high flyer, I think it's, super subject to anything like this.
Well, I mean, they are being accused of something, just not by the SEC. A lot of people are accusing them of something.
But investigated by the SEC. I wanted to be super clear about this. It continues to be the one that everybody's watching for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I heard that a lot yesterday.
Did you?
There's some interesting lesson here about the fact that mobile app market is huge. Like there's a lot of value being created there by sellers and buyers and intermediaries. But if you somehow concentrate it into a flywheel that really works, the value just explodes. It's sort of like the hydrogen bomb approach. You have to you have to concentrate it to get the value. I can't reconcile my brain with a $200 billion market cap for this, but at the same time, right, the numbers are there. So, we are yet to learn the lessons here. It's a work in progress, I guess, is the best I can offer.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's a complex ecosystem that's hard to the regular people to understand.
Yes.
So, and when a lot of money goes into a complex ecosystem, you remember mortgage-backed securities? There was lots of opportunities for people to package odd things. So I actually am not accusing them of anything. Honestly, I'm not. I'm just saying it's a complex ecosystem. So
yeah. So we've been going pretty long. I think we gotta call it there, Eric.
No problem. Thank you, Omar. This is great, man.
Awesome, guys.
Yeah, Omar, this is fantastic. I feel like I really learned a lot because I unlike Eric, I have not been involved with the company. I didn't really know what you were doing, so it's super interesting for me.
Cool. Thanks for having us.
We'll see you next week, everybody.
Thank you for subscribing to Marketecture. New interviews are added every week at marketecture.tv and your favorite podcasting app.
Thank you for listening to the Marketecture podcast. New episodes come out every Friday, and an insightful vendor interview is published each Monday. You can subscribe to our library of hundreds of executive interviews at marketecture.tv. You can also sign up for free for our weekly newsletter with my original strategic insights on the week's news at news.marketecture.tv. And if you're feeling social, we operate a vibrant Slack community that you can apply to join at adtechgod.com.